Well, good morning. It's good to see everyone here today. Just one second. Well, there's that. How about that for an intro? How many of you have ever been mischaracterized in your life? Yeah, right? That's something that we've all experienced at some point. Maybe someone caught you at less than your best moment. And for whatever reason, that picture or image has stuck with you, and that's how you are portrayed to other people at times. Maybe it's they saw you in an odd circumstance, drew the wrong conclusions, whatever that might be. I don't need to know whatever your weird story is and how that happened to you, but needless to say, it's very easy for a caricature to replace the reality. Now, as I mentioned in Bible class, I spent about 18 years of my life in the creative arts field as a graphic designer, creative director, things of that nature, before I started preaching. And I just have to say, I hate is a strong term. I hate caricatures. I don't like caricatures in any shape or form whatsoever. Now, yes, it's hyperbole. I love hyperbole in literature. I love the Psalms filled with hyperbole, but this is visual hyperbole, and I can't imagine. Have you ever been the focus of a caricature, like you go to Dollywood or something like that, and for some weird reason, you hand over your hard-earned money to have somebody basically make fun of you with a picture? Has that ever happened to you before? Well, you've done that to yourself, first off, but secondly, they pick the worst elements and then they exaggerate it for emphasis. They take a superficial trait and make it the defining quality. It emphasizes the worst to the detriment of the best in us, doesn't it? I love hyperbole as a literary tool. I hate hyperbole as a graphical tool. It's frustrating to be mischaracterized. It's even hurtful to be mischaracterized. If you've been on the receiving end of that, you know the special pain that is associated with mischaracterization. It can unfairly damage your reputation amongst family, friends, co-workers, community. Unfairly, because it's not reflective of the truth. It's mischaracterization it's mischaracterization, not actual characterization. And when we simply believe mischaracterizations of others, and we hear that stuff and uncritically accept that about others, we essentially throw someone under the bus. Have you ever seen the phrase or heard of the phrase throwing someone under the bus? When you throw someone under the bus, we're not talking about literally throwing someone under the bus, although you probably have the opportunity to do that in downtown Charlotte. Right? I'm talking about the mischaracterization of something. It's treating someone unfairly by criticizing, blaming, or punishing them in some way, often but not always for personal gain. I'm just going to throw them under the bus. Let the bus boom, 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 right over the top of them. Few Bible characters have been so absolutely mischaracterized, so often unfairly thrown under the bus with reckless abandon than Thomas. That cat's been thrown under the bus more times than I can count. Think about that. Bible class, VBS. What is the one word, church, that is associated with Thomas? Doubt. Doubt. Thomas the doubter. Thomas the doubting bum. Is that really a fair assessment? That doubt is the only term that sticks with Thomas throughout the ages of the church. Since Jesus' ascension, This is the only thing that we remember about Thomas. I mean, there are other things, but this is the one thing that sticks with him. It's like Rahab the prostitute. How about Rahab, the mother of the people who would eventually produce David? No, we got to remember, unfair characterization. The doubter. A caricature. Here's the problem. And remembering only that aspect of Thomas, we forget that he made in almost the next breath the single most powerful and personal confession of the deity of the resurrected Jesus Christ that we find in the entirety of the Gospels. But that's not Thomas, the great professor, Thomas, the great confession of Thomas. We know the great confession that Peter made. But we don't know the great confession of Thomas. We know that Thomas is the doubter, forgotten in the rush to mischaracterize. So today, I'm going to attempt to pull Thomas out from under the bus under which he is usually found and set the record straight and illustrate the dangers of characterizing people by their failings and their worst moments, which is something that can indeed happen. Let's just read John 20 through 24 in its entirety there, and then we'll talk about it. Now Thomas, one of the 12, called the twin, when he was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We've seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see in his hands the mark of the nails, and place my finger into the mark of the nails, and place my hand into his side, I will never believe." 8 days later, his disciples were inside again, and Thomas was with them. And although the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands, and put out your hand and place it in my side. Do not disbelieve, but believe." Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." Did Thomas doubt? Oh yeah. Undeniable, regrettably so, expressed it in the strongest terms possible. You ever have that thing that comes out of your mouth and about 5 minutes later you're like, well, maybe I wish I had said it in a different way? That's pretty harsh how Thomas responded. Jesus' own response tells us that this is absolutely true. You can't deny that there wasn't an aspect of doubt to this. Jesus said, "Do not disbelieve, but believe." Present tense in Greek. Speaking to a present tense, ongoing, continued state of mind possessed by Thomas. Jesus was addressing this continued state, something that Thomas persisted in. But what was it that he actually doubted? Was it Jesus himself? It's tempting to think that, isn't it? But I'm going to submit that it wasn't that he doubted Jesus per se, just on the basis of the evidence of his life. And I don't mean the evidence. Jesus was